Hey everybody, it's PJ from Karma Airguns. I've got a sick Karma SLS that we're going to take a look at. And this video may help you if you need to get in and diagnose some issues with the trigger. So we're going to bring you in close and show you how we're going to get this baby back up and running. Okay, first things first, you want to make sure when you're doing this work that the air gun is uncocked and unloaded. I've already checked that. So we can move right into removing the pistol grip, which will take a 5mm Allen to remove the grip screw. Set that aside so we don't lose that. We're going to move down to a 4mm. So take off the grip adapter plate. And then we can rest the rifle on its side. And you're going to see 2 screws here on the outside. And so, wrong one. These are a 2. And this is what actually holds the trigger guard in place. And there is some spring tension under these. So just be aware of that so you're not surprised if things kind of pop out on you. So you can see that there's a little bit of a unthreaded part and then a threaded part. That's the part that actually goes through the trigger guard. So we want to set these somewhere where they're not going to get lost. And then we can come over to the other one. I'm just going to hold a little bit of pressure on here so nothing flies out on me. I take that out. You'll see that those 2 screws are basically the same. And then the trigger guard comes out. Set that right there. And then there are 2 springs. One engages with the trigger body and one engages with the sear. And the shorter one goes in the front and the longer one goes in the back. So however you're going to stay organized, I recommend you set those aside and kind of remember which one is which. Now, we've actually opened this gun up already, and I'm going to zoom in so that you can see this. We've actually had inside this area on this particular gun, at some point, a pellet got sucked back into the mechanism and has sort of clogged things up. So I'm going to get a pick and we're going to pull those pieces out and we'll reassess from there. Okay, so what you can see is the remnants of what looks like one pellet. And that's what is likely causing that. So what we're going to do is actually remove these next 2 screws. This one actually holds the trigger in place and this one holds the sear in place. We're going to take the trigger out first so that we can get under the trigger and see if there's any more additional lead shaving in there. Oops. Need the 2 for that. The trigger screw is likely to have some Loctite in there. And we'll talk about this when we go back to reinstall. But a little bit of blue Loctite is a good idea on this particular screw. I'm going to set this over by the springs. Take that trigger out. And then I'm going to get in there with a little bit of a cloth, I think, and just wipe out that lead residue. Okay, through the magic of video, we are back, having cleaned out the interior of the trigger mechanism cavity. We did also remove the sear, and that's simply taking a 2.5 millimeter Allen and pulling out this bolt, fits in right there. We got that out just so we could make sure we got all of the shavings out of there. It didn't appear that anything had gotten up into the mechanism. We turned it over, actuated the lever a couple times, shook it really good, didn't hear anything loose rattling around in there. 1 or 2 flakes fell out, but we felt like it was pretty clean in there, so we didn't take the entire mechanism out, though you could do that in a really extreme case. So we've got everything cleaned out with a patch, ballastol, and then re-lubed with silicone oil, and we're ready to put everything back together. So the first item we're going to put in is the sear. When you look at the sear, there's this cup where the spring goes in, and that goes towards the back, right? So towards the stock. And the easiest way to do it, to line it up, is to hold it, pinch it by the back, and then dip it in so that you can bring the screw around and put it in there. And then what I'm going to do is hold that, and I'm going to put just a dab of blue Loctite. That's maybe even a little bit much. I want that to go on the threads but not fall down into this area, because if it does, what's going to happen is that Loctite itself can get into things and wind up gunking up the trigger. So little blue Loctite to hold this, because we have to be careful not to over torque this screw. I'm going to use my Fix-It Sticks inch-pound meter, and I am only putting 10 inch-pounds on this. So this is not very tight at all. What I want to be able to do is come in here, and I want to be able to see that this still moves. And if you don't get free movement on it back and forth, what's happened is you've tightened it too much, and the walls are actually kind of pinching in on it. And so you have to loosen it up just a little bit. It's our afternoon thunderstorm power loss here in Central Florida. Welcome to hurricane season. So this is actually a little bit tight. So I am going to back it off just a little bit. And that's the kind of movement you want to see. So too tight, if that's bound up, you're going to have trigger problems. So be careful with that. The next part we're going to put in is the trigger. And it should be pretty obvious which way the trigger has to go. You know, if you do it this way, that's like riding your horse backwards. That's not going to work. So we need this to go in here. And drop that guide. Remember, this is a 2 millimeter. So I'm just going to get that started. You'll see that because that's an ellipse, the hole through the trigger is an ellipse, you'll see it moves back and forth a little bit. So I'm going to come over to this side. And I just want a little bit of that into that hole so I can get it on those threads, but not into the mechanism itself. Just making sure that gets into the threads. So I want to make sure that's got plenty of play in it, and that's at about 12.5 inch-pounds. So remember, long in the back, and I have put a dab of grease on the bottom end of this trigger, or of the spring, because that will help it stay in place in that hole, and I've done the same. This is just silicone grease, putting that in the front. This trigger guard, we want to go all the way forward with it and then slide it straight down. And what we're hoping is that there's a cup there and a cup there. Let me try and zoom in on this for you. Let's see the spring going into that cup, staying in the cup down there. And then there's also a cup right there. And we want both of these springs to line up and then pop into place so we can drop these bolts in, and there it stays. And then we'll tighten these up and we'll test for function. Now, if that doesn't work perfectly for you the first time, don't worry. This is not my first time doing this, so don't be surprised if it takes you a couple of opportunities to get it to where it all fits in and everything is working just fine. You could also back these out a little bit and put a dab of Loctite there if you wanted. It just depends on whether or not you feel like you got everything perfectly in place. I think if it were me, I would test fire a couple times to make sure it's working. And if it is, then I'd back this off just a little bit, not enough, and I would do this one first and then this one, or this one, then this one, doesn't matter, right? But I would back that out, get a little bit on the threads, bring it forward, and once that's set, back that one out, get a little in threads and bring it forward. That way it's all Loctite in place and you know it's not going anywhere, and it's exactly where you want it to be. One other thing that we've noticed, if you have a hard time getting the trigger guard to snap in place, that is a sure sign that one of these two is too tight. If you've pinched this metal together, the trigger guard won't go in, and at that point you know you got a mistake somewhere. So this one's working fine. I could turn my attention to the trigger grip adapter. Remember, this is a 4mm. And then I can put the grip back on. And we can get the rail back on. and we can go ahead and do a test firing to make sure that we got it all put back together properly. But that is how you clean out the trigger well if you get something, whether that's grit, mud, if you over Loctited and you got some Loctite, basically any kind of trigger malfunction, this is where I would start to see if you can find something in there, either out of adjustment or impinging on the ability of the trigger to move forward and reset for you. So if you have questions, make sure you put them in the comments so we can get you an answer as quickly as possible. And until the next video, everybody, shoot safe, shoot straight, and we'll see you around.